a child born in exile. Before she was queen, before her name echoed through palace halls, before crowns and decrees and royal banquets, she was simply a child born in exile. In the mighty Persian Empire, within the fortified city of Susa, a Jewish couple welcomed a baby girl into a world that was not their homeland. They had been carried away from Jerusalem years earlier, survivors of conquest, learning to live under foreign rule. Yet inside their modest dwelling, love was not conquered. Her mother held her close, whispering ancient Hebrew blessings over her fragile body. Her father, weary from labor under Persian oversight, smiled with a tenderness reserved only for his daughter. They named her Hadassah, Esther, meaning myrtle, a plant that blooms quietly, fragrant though unseen. Outside their door, banners of Persia waved proudly, but inside, hope burned softly. They did not know that this child, born without privilege, would one day stand at the center of an empire.
The shadow of war. Peace in exile is fragile. It can vanish with a rumor, collapse with a single spark. Whispers of unrest drifted through Susa like dust carried on desert winds. Conflict broke out in the streets, political tension, suppressed rebellions, violence between factions. One evening, the noise became too loud to ignore. Soldiers marched. Smoke rose against the twilight sky. Esther's father stepped outside, determined to protect what little they had. Her mother clutched her tightly as shouting erupted. The night swallowed the sounds of chaos, and by dawn, everything had changed. Her parents did not return. The violence of men had stolen them. Esther, too young to understand death, felt its emptiness. The arms that once held her were gone. The voices that once soothed her were silent. The empire moved forward as if nothing had happened, but heaven was watching.
An orphan in a vast empire. The city of Susa was enormous to a child. Its towering gates, marble courtyards, bustling marketplaces, all overwhelming. In the middle of that crowded world stood a little girl whose life had collapsed overnight. People brushed past her, merchants shouted prices, camels groaned beneath heavy loads. No one paused long enough to see her grief. She searched faces, hoping for familiarity, but found none. The word orphan was never spoken to her, yet she felt it settle over her like cold air. She belonged nowhere. She was small in a city obsessed with power. And yet, hidden within her story, unseen by human eyes, was a thread of divine intention weaving through her sorrow.
Mordecai steps forward. Among the Jewish exiles in Susa lived a man named Mordecai. He was not a nobleman nor a warrior. He held no title of prestige, but he carried something far more powerful: faithfulness. When he learned of his cousin's daughter left alone, he did not hesitate. He sought her out. When he found her, fragile and grieving, he saw more than tragedy. He saw responsibility. He knelt and gently called her by name. In his eyes, she saw safety. In his arms, she found shelter. From that moment forward, he raised her as his own daughter, not out of obligation, but love. The empire would never record that adoption, but history would depend on it.
Raised as his own daughter. Years passed, and Mordecai's home became Esther's refuge. Though their circumstances were humble, the atmosphere within was rich with faith. At night, by lamplight, Mordecai would unroll sacred scrolls and recount the stories of their ancestors, of Abraham's promise, of Moses' deliverance, of a God who parted seas and toppled tyrants. Esther listened with quiet intensity. She learned self-control. She learned wisdom. She learned that survival in exile required both courage and caution. Mordecai taught her something vital. Conceal your heritage for now. The Persian Empire was unpredictable.
Power shifted quickly, and being openly Jewish could invite danger. She trusted him. She grew not only in beauty, but in discernment.
A hidden identity. As Esther entered young womanhood, her presence became striking. Her beauty was not loud, but luminous. Her movements were graceful, her speech measured. She walked through Susa carrying both dignity and secrecy. Persian soldiers passed in polished armor. Nobles paraded in fine garments. The empire displayed its glory at every turn. Yet Esther carried a different inheritance, one invisible but unbreakable. Mordecai often lingered near the king's gate for work and news. He observed palace politics carefully. He sensed tension building in royal circles. And somehow he felt that Esther's life would soon intersect with the machinery of power.
The grand banquet of King Xerxes. At the height of Persian dominance, King Xerxes hosted a banquet that lasted for days, a display of unimaginable wealth. Marble pillars glistened, gold goblets overflowed with wine, silk draperies swayed in perfumed air. Leaders from 127 provinces reclined in luxury. Xerxes reveled in admiration, intoxicated by applause and authority. This was not merely celebration, it was exhibition. And in a moment of prideful impulse, he ordered that Queen Vashti be brought before the guests to display her beauty. Power demanded spectacle.
The refusal of Queen Vashti. In her private quarters, Vashti received the command. She understood its humiliation, and she refused. It was a quiet act of defiance, but its consequences thundered through the palace. When the king heard her answer, fury ignited. His advisors feared rebellion if such disobedience went unanswered. Pride and politics collided, and so Vashti was stripped of her royal position. A throne once occupied now stood empty. No one in that moment considered that an orphan Jewish girl would one day fill it. The king's decree. Royal scribes worked quickly. Decrees were written and dispatched across the vast empire. Vashti would never again come before the king. The vacancy created uncertainty. The empire whispered, who would be chosen next? Beneath the political maneuvering, destiny moved quietly. God's name is never mentioned in the narrative, yet his sovereignty pulses beneath every event. The search for a new queen. Officials were sent to gather young women of beauty from every province. Esther was among them. When royal officers arrived, Mordecai understood resistance was impossible. The day she left his home was heavy with unspoken fear. He gave final instructions: reveal nothing of your people. Walk wisely. Remember who you are. Palace gates closed behind her. The life she knew disappeared into stone corridors and guarded chambers. The women's quarters. Inside the harem under Haggai's care, competition filled the air. Women sought advantage through extravagance. Yet Esther did something unexpected. She listened. She showed respect. She asked for only what was advised. Haggai noticed her spirit. Favour followed her quietly. She was given the best place in the house of women, not because she fought for it, but because grace rested upon her. Esther gains favor. Servants spoke well of her. Attendants preferred assisting her. She did not manipulate. She did not boast. She carried humility like a crown long before gold touched her head. Meanwhile, Mordecai paced daily near the courtyard, seeking news of her welfare. The empire saw another candidate. Heaven saw a positioned deliverer. The night of destiny. When her turn came to approach the king, Esther chose simplicity. No excessive jewels, no dramatic display. The corridor to the royal chamber seemed endless. Every step echoed with possibility. Acceptance could elevate her, rejection could erase her. Yet she walked steadily. Fear did not master her. Yet she walked steadily. Fear did not master her. Faith did. Winning the king's heart. King Xerxes had seen countless women, yet when Esther entered, something shifted. Her beauty was undeniable, but it was her composure that captured attention. She did not perform. She did not plead.
She simply stood with quiet confidence, and the king extended favor. Among all others, she pleased him most. Crowned above all. In the grand throne room of Susa, before nobles and officials, Xerxes placed the royal crown upon her head. The orphan became queen. The hidden was revealed. Mordecai stood at the gate, witnessing what faithfulness had nurtured. The empire celebrated its new queen, unaware that her story was only beginning. For Esther's elevation was not about luxury, it was about positioning. From loss to royalty, from obscurity to influence, from exile to crown. And the God who is never mentioned in the text had orchestrated every step.